Um, Good evening and welcome. I would like to call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, March the 4th. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of these communities in our shared cultural heritage. Lucan Biddulph is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples and that have a unique relationship with the land and its resources. We endeavor to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices and to grow in knowledge. As we build meaningful relationships, we recognize contributions of Indigenous peoples and honor their leadership in partnership in shaping and strengthening our community. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay. So on Saturday, we observe and celebrate International Women's Day. And the theme for 2025 is for all women and girls, rights, equality, empowerment, under the hashtag theme of Accelerate Action. This year's theme calls for action that can unlock equal rights, power, and opportunities for all, and a future where no one is left behind. Central to this vision is empowering the next generation of young women as catalysts for lasting change. A fun fact is that at the current rate of progress, it will take until 2158, that is 5 generations from now, to reach full gender parity. And this is according to the World Economic Forum. So what can we collectively do? Well, we can focus on the need to emphasize the importance of taking swift and decisive steps to achieve gender equality. This year's theme calls for increased momentum and urgency in addressing the systematic barriers and biases that women face, both in personal and professional spheres. It's easy for us to take for granted the positions that we see women in Lucan Biddulph. Just look at this room. We have women in high senior positions, and we have a female mayor. At the county level, senior leadership is diverse, and we have parity around the horseshoe. But this is not the case everywhere. As you are aware, I am involved with a project with the county and FCM, and we are partnered with municipalities in Cambodia. And the whole purpose of this project is to advance gender equality and social inclusion by empowering women in local governments. We focus not only in the advancement of women in senior leadership and elected roles, but also to look at projects and policy with a gender equity lens on. It has been a privilege to be involved in this project, and it not only reminds me of how fortunate I am to be here in this environment, but it also serves as inspiration and to realize that as far as we have come, there is still more to do. So on March 8th, please take some time to think about how in your professional and personal lives, you can accelerate action and empower the women you know and work with, because together we can make a difference. So we do not have a closed session tonight, but we do have to enter into the Court of Revision. And so at this point, 6:04, I would ask for a mover and a seconder that council adjourn our regular meeting to sit as the Court of Revision under Section 97 of the Drainage Act as amended to consider the Gowdy Drain 2024 and that Mayor Kathy Burkhart-Jessen be appointed as chair. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. And I believe, Jeff, you are going to take us through the court.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not a lot. We've had no one come forward to put their name forward to come forward to the court. So if there has been no one come forward, council or the court then has the right to then move on to the next stage. So. Yep.
Are there any questions from the court at this point? Okay, so with that, we have a motion in front of us that the Court of Revision, having met on behalf of the Goudy Drain 2024, does hereby adopt the revised drainage assessment schedule dated October 31st, 2024, as submitted by Spreed Associates. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And a mover and a seconder so that we can close the Court of Revision at 6:06 in order to reconvene our regular council meeting, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So we do have a presentation delegation tonight, and at this point, I'd like to welcome from Lambton Shores, the mayor, Doug Cook, and the CAO, Steve McCauley, who might be familiar to a few people around here. But I'd welcome them up to the speaker's desk to take us through a presentation on the Huron Shores Transit that, of course, we see their transit buses go through our community often. But it's great to have you with us, gentlemen. Welcome to Lucan Biddulph. And I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, my name is Doug Cook. I'm the mayor of Lambton Shores. And with me, Steve Pinson. Steve, oh, that was a slip there. Steve McCauley, our CAO. And I guess we're here to talk about Huron Shores area transit presentation. So I guess we started 2020 with Huron Shores Transit. Tough time to start anything. So the first couple of years was sort of an uphill grind. The last few years, I think you'll see by the presentation, we've had pretty good success. Our coordinator, Susan Mills, out of our office, has really done a great job connecting with businesses and especially the Lambton College out of Sarnia to generate a lot of traffic and transit on our buses. And I think you can benefit the businesses and retail in Grand Bend especially, and in other areas that have benefited very much from this transit system. And I know the students there really welcome the opportunity to have opportunities to work outside of Sarnia. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve McCall.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Your Worship. So council, we're here today to talk about the Huron Shores Transit System. As the mayor indicated, launched in 2020, it really came out of a grassroots kind of surge from some of our local people that came forward and asked our council to at first undertake a feasibility study on a rural transit system. There was funding available at the time. They got that funding and they did the study, and the study showed that they thought it was feasible to do a transit system. Lambton Shores was then asked to take the task on to run a transit system. Again, there was funding available at the time. It was community transit funding. We call it CT funding for short. And that's kind of how the Huron Shores Transit System grew. And as indicated here, we serve all the way from Sarnia through to Grand Bend, up through Exeter, through Lucan, and into London, to the Masonville area. We also have a route that heads north through Bayfield and up into all the way to Goderich, and one that heads to Strathroy that I will talk about a little bit later. So serves a population of approximately 37,000. That's probably going to be, if we continue on, that will actually grow a little bit. Covers about 1,500 square kilometers, which is twice the size of Toronto. And we do that with 20-person buses. And every bus accommodates 2 wheelchairs and 2 bicycles, and they're provided by Viago Transit. So the CT funding that we talk about, it actually runs out at the end of the month. So we had the original 5 years, and then they extended because of COVID. They extended, so it does run out at the end of March 31st. In terms of progress, we've quadrupled the ridership. We've our 2024 ridership is looking to double what we did in 2023. Our goal is 32,000. I haven't got the final numbers for 2024, but I think we're on pace to hit that or do better. The employment buses we run have been very successful. As the mayor mentioned, we're pulling Lambton College students out of the college and getting them to work all the way up into Exeter and Centralia. We did add a summer beach bus with 4 return trips on the weekend, July and August from London. That was popular, for obvious reasons, to get to Grand Bend. So the next slide, the map shows our routes. So Route 1 in that kind of purpley color is the route that goes from Grand Bend and gets to Sarnia with stops in Kettle and Stony Point, which is a fairly big user for us, as well as Thedford and Arkona. Route 2 is the route that goes through Dashwood, through Exeter, Huron Park, Lucan, and gets to Masonville area. Route 3 goes up to through St. Joe's or Kensal, and ultimately pokes into Goderich at the Walmart there. And then Route 4 goes to Grand Bend, from Grand Bend to Park Hill, Elscraig, Strathroy. So that's kind of gives you the idea of the routes. Route 4 is probably a route, and I'll talk about a bit later, that just so you have, while you have it on the map, is one that we probably will discontinue. So if we look at Route 2, which is what you folks are on, you can see kind of some of the stops and what the on-offs are. One question you might have is how many actual Lucan Biddulph residents use the bus system. I can't tell you. All I can tell you is on-offs. You probably assume that people getting on and off in Lucan are from the area, but not necessarily. You'll have people that get off to do something and from Grand Bend, or they're going from Lucan to Grand Bend and then getting a ride back. So you'll never match it up 100%. That's kind of just the way it works with the way we track our on-offs. We run 362 days a year except Christmas and New Year's and Good Friday. You can see the total year-end trips was about 8,500 for this particular route. There's a next chart is just a chart on our riderships and how we've grown it from 2021, and you can see our 2024 goal is goal was 32,000, and we're I think we're going to exceed that, and we plan. Our future plans with some additional areas brought in will increase that even more. So if we look at the numbers of financial operations, as all of council's aware, budgets are fairly easy. They are made up of expenses and offset by revenues. It's pretty much as simple as that. So on our expense side, we really have only a couple of expenses. Our contracted expenses, which is that Viago bus, they supply the buses and the drivers. And then some administration, which is one FTE, full-time equivalent, that coordinates our operating system. As Mayor Cook mentioned, in our office, that's Susan Mills. She's the one that has managed this system. And then we have some marketing expenses as well. I will point out that one of the expenses, or some of the expenses you don't see on here because Lambton Shores has absorbed them, are myself, anytime with myself, our treasurer's done a ton of work in the past on this, any of our auditing costs. We don't charge anything for office space, office equipment, any of that stuff. So it's been run pretty lean. And that was on purpose so that we could maximize the funding that the province was giving us, which to this point has been the entire fund for the project. So there was no other monies put in. It was all run off of the CT funding. On the revenue side, what we, moving forward, what we see for revenue are obviously bus fares and advertising. I would tell you on bus fares, in kind of round numbers, for every dollar we spend, we'll collect about 20 cents in bus fares. That is the reality of the transit system. We are no different than any other rural transit system. And in fact, I dare say we are one of the most successful rural transit systems in the area. We've compared to others with our ridership, where we go, and we are among the best. The other three pieces of revenue are the provincial gas tax, the Ontario Transit Investment Fund, or what we call OTIF, that was the fund that was just announced in the fall. And then to make up the difference, municipal contributions. So if we look at some of those funding areas, if we specifically look at the gas tax transit program first, so that's a fund that's distributed annually. I would call it almost a right that if you run a transit system, you're eligible to get that money. It's not really an application system. It's more of a put your numbers in and they'll calculate how much you're entitled to. And it's basically what they do is they take the total amount of transit gas tax transit money they have. In 23-24 it was 380 million, and they calculate it based on two components: the population that you serve, and the ridership that you get. And important to note that only the municipality providing the gas tax can claim that gas tax. But the municipality that's providing the gas tax, so in our case, Lambton Shores, can claim gas tax from any municipality that they serve. And just to kind of reiterate, this is gas tax transit funding. This isn't gas tax, anything to do with the other gas tax you get for your roads and bridges. And in fact, if you don't run a transit system, you can't get this money. So when Lambton Shores runs a system and gets the gas tax from another municipality, it's not like we're taking any money away from them. They never had it in the first place unless they ran a transit system, in which case they would be getting it anyway. But in order for us to get that gas tax, the municipality has to contribute some money. They have to be a contributor to the system. The last point on there, I've highlighted in yellow because it is important. The gas tax funding can exceed 75% of the municipal contribution. Why that matters to us is you heard me a few minutes ago say that up until now, CT funding has paid for the entire program. What that means is, in terms of gas tax funding, when they do their calculation, the only contribution we have would be fares, because we haven't put any other money in. So for the first few years, our gas tax is lower and then climbs as our contribution goes up, and you'll see the OTIF contribution will go down. So it's kind of a funny number. And actually I talked to the gas tax people directly and I said, so what that means is if I said I'm going to start a brand new transit system, rural transit system, or a transit system anywhere, to start a brand new one, you wouldn't fund us because they work on the year prior, and they wouldn't fund anything because we had obviously had no transit system. And they confirmed, yeah, that's how that works. So I expressed my thoughts on that, but it didn't seem to any good. The other piece of funding that I talked about was the Ontario Transit Investment Fund, OTIF. That's the funding that came out in the fall from the province. It is a one-time application-based funding. It has an ongoing application window, so until the fund is depleted, basically. All municipalities, Indigenous communities, and nonprofit organizations are eligible to apply. So City of Toronto can apply for this fund. That was confirmed in a seminar we were in. They will fund up to 50% the total aggregate over 5 years. So we can phase it, which you'll see we have. So we phased it heavy on the front end to make up for the gas tax loss, right? But at the end of the 5 years, the total aggregate can only be 50%. The aim of it is at new and gap filling initiatives. That's what they've told us. We think that we're filling a gap, so we're certainly going ahead with the application, and have gone ahead with an application. The total funding available is $5 million for the province. So to put that into a little bit of perspective, so on the second, when I said that we had the CT funding, and then they extended it because of COVID. On the second round, the second extension round, which is only to the CT people that got CT funding, which was all the rural systems, the funding for that, just that extension, was $7 million, and that was to the rural system. So this is $5 million for anybody, for everybody. So it isn't much. We're trying our best to see what we can do. Like I said, we have put in an application, at least to get them talking to us, which they are. We're hearing from them almost every day. We're going back and forth. We're explaining what they're saying, what they're looking for now are commitments from other municipalities, and we're telling them we're working on it. We're making progress. And we hope that their interest in us is a sign that we may be able to get the money. The last point there is we have to include a project team that includes somebody from each municipality, and you'll see later on in the final ask. What I'm suggesting is that team. For now, anyway, we make the team the CAOs of all the municipalities that are putting money in. We think that works for a couple reasons. One is the CAOs are a nice connection between staff and council. There are times when we might want to do something, put a new bench up or whatever, and it will be nice to have the CAOs around the table that we can say, hey, we want to put this bench up in Lucan Biddulph, and then Mr. Raymer can talk to Mr. Little, and we can make this happen. And I think it just makes life work for us a little bit better if we have kind of those key players, and at the same time they're able to keep their councils, they'll understand it, and they'll be able to keep their councils up to date. So the budget projections, I won't go through all these numbers because there's a lot of them. I'll tell you, this is a really tough spreadsheet to work on. If I open this spreadsheet up, which I have, you'd see how big the spreadsheet is. And it's almost a huge circular spreadsheet because gas tax changes with contribution, OTIF changes with the amount that we put in for each year. So, but generally speaking, we have, again, our expenses are at the top, our revenues are our fares down below. You'll see that they go up fairly dramatically, and that's simply based on the fact that we need to increase our fare prices. We are cheap right now. Local trips are $5. That'll go up. Our bus passes are $120. That'll go up to $160. A bus pass gives you ride wherever you want, whenever you want. So that's the type of thing we expect employers will buy for their employees. So we projected increases in the cost of those fares, but also in we projected ridership increase. So that's the revenue. Advertising, you see, we've got some advertising numbers in there. The municipality, Lambton Shores, was successful in another application and got some capital money. We have to put some of it in ourselves, but we're putting a business case together for council to show that it's worth putting our portion in. And that will allow us to have better bus stops, bigger bus stops, the benches where we can advertise you know, the realtors can advertise on, those types of things. So we're trying to make some money up in advertising. You can see the gas tax, and you can see how it ramps up drastically. So in the first year, it's only 100,000 because it's basically only the 75% kicks in because of the amount of fares we had. And you'll see the OTIF is really high at 400, and that it ramps down. It goes the other way. So you can see all the revenue sources, all the expenses, and the bottom line is really what we as municipalities have to make up. And the other thing I'll point out on this screen, if you look at 2029, you can see, so again, gas tax is almost an entitlement. We're entitled to get that money. The OTIF is the 5-year one-time funding. But you can see by the time we get over 2029, we're only relying on that for 38,000 at that point. So we're almost to a sustainable point, which is what they've told us they want. They want us to be sustainable, but in their eyes, sustainability is just, we don't ask them for money. They understand, we brought this up with them, and they understand that there is no transit system that pays for itself. But their sustainable model is just that they don't have to give us any more money. So, so we get it down to 38,000 out of $1 million, you know, or over $1 million. So the municipal contribution. So this page will differ from the one you had in your agenda. We worked on a couple of alternate scenarios where we added some stops in. We've talked to some other municipalities. Plymouth, Wyoming was one where we think we can bring some of their gas tax money in and get their gas tax money. So the Lucan Biddulph average now is 22,800 is what we would be asking for, and you can see what the others are putting in. At this point, North Middlesex has indicated they are probably not interested, but I've got to confirm that with them. That's so, and I can tell you Blue Water has committed to actually a bigger number than the 30,000. They passed a resolution last night to commit to that. South Huron, we're hopeful for them that they'll pass a resolution for us next week. And I have a meeting with Kettlin. It's Kettlin Stony Point First Nation is what that stands for, if people aren't aware. So I have a meeting with the CEO from KP, and they've indicated they have some money for us as well. And the note there at the bottom, the important part of that is this whole scenario assumes that we do get OTIF funding. Unfortunately, if we don't get OTIF funding, I think it's safe to say Lambton Shores will have to be in a position to shut the system down. It just will be too big a hill to climb for us. So your worship, the final slide is just the ask, and it's pretty straightforward. Just the 22,000 over the 5 years for a total of 114,000 roughly, and that Lucan agrees to allocate the gas tax to us, and that the CAO be designated as project representative. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I think that any of the municipalities that are involved in rural transportation would say the same thing. If they don't get OTIF money, they're not going to be able to continue. I think that's everybody's in the same position. Before I open up for questions, what was your timeline and when did you want an answer?
So as soon as possible.
Right.
Well, we're putting the last pieces together to go back to the OTIF folks to say, so we put in our application basically to get it in front of them so that, you know, we had something in front of them. We need to modify it now because again, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but with North Mid probably being out, we'll take that Route 3 out, which that's fine. It was actually one of our poorer routes anyway. It didn't have the use that we thought it would. So we need to make that modification, and then what we'd like to do is go to them with, yeah, we've got all these wonderful folks on board, and we're ready to move forward.
Like I know like the initial provincial funding runs out March 31st, but do you, like, I know with Connect, with Middlesex County Connect, we'll be able to extend the service into the fall.
Yeah.
So are you able to, or are you,
So we have a special council meeting Thursday to talk about that. We may be able to squeeze a month. Yeah, but we're pretty much down to, we've used the entire, yeah. I know it came out that you could apply to move that forward. I think we're sitting at around $25,000, which, you know, what we'll end up doing is having some admin costs and collect that back and then put it back in the system to try and keep it running for a little bit longer. But that's the reality.
okay. All right, Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, if I may. Thank you, gentlemen. Just a couple of points of clarification. You mentioned when you first started that Route 4 and now Route 3 are canceled. And I'm just wondering why.
No, just route. Hold on. Maybe I got my route numbers. Can we go to the map?
Yeah, you said Route 3 was going to be canceled. So then
Yeah.
earlier was Route 4. So I just wanted
So it's Route 4. Sorry, Councillor.
Is it
It's
Route
Route
4?
4.
Okay.
Yeah. So the red
Okay.
route.
So I guess my first question, if I may, is sort of why is that being discontinued? Sorry, just because of the ridership or?
So combination of ridership, and it didn't appear north. It mostly serves North Middlesex. It didn't appear they were interested in putting
Right.
money in.
Okay, I just have a couple more. So the other one was, I guess, which is, you may not be able to answer it, but just would be interesting to find out what the purpose of the trips are. Like, why do most people use this service? I guess, and that sort of goes in with the other concern or question I had was, you're predicting an increase in ridership, and I'm just wondering what you base that on. Like, how are you coming up with that projection?
Yeah. So through you, your worship, the councillor. So as far as what people are using it for, we've heard just anecdotally everything from older people using it for medical trips, shopping, employment. The employment one was a big one. And as far as the trips, it's marketing and getting the word out. You know, this system, you know, COVID was tough on us, and so we've really only been gaining steam for about 3 years now, and we think that there's ability to really grow that ridership based on people understanding what's available. It's not hard. It's not that expensive. You know, so that's what we're basing it on.
Right. And if I may, so I'm on a committee with a number of other municipalities with sustainability, environmental. And of course, this is very important because we get more and more people to ride the bus, fewer and fewer cars, and it just makes sense, our environmental sense. What I'm just wondering, with the funding running out, is it an opportunity for all the municipalities to get together and perhaps have a delegation with the Ministry of Transportation at AMO? And perhaps go in as strong, like with all of us going in, all the CAOs, whoever, mayors, and actually, because this is kind of important. And if we're getting success, I'm just thinking if it's being successful, you know, we want it to be more successful than Lucan Biddulph. But I mean, if it's being successful, if people are using this and the funding, I mean, the program's working. Why can we push for this at that level? Just asking.
So through you, your worship, the only thing I'll say to that is Mayor Cook and Deputy Mayor Sageman and myself, we did meet with who did we meet with? Ministry of Transportation. Yeah. Down at AMO, and yeah, it was before they announced the funding. So yes,
Yeah.
it was before they announced OTIF funding. So we knew CT was running out, but they weren't giving us any indication of what was coming. So we lobbied for it, like, you need to continue the CT funding. You know, I think we were all willing to put something in. I don't know that we were looking for 100% would be nice, but this wasn't really you know, the funding we were hoping for. And at the very least, it's certainly not the amount of funding we were looking at. $5 million. Somebody's going to be short. There's no question about it. You know, the example I got kind of chuckled. The example when somebody asked the question, is this funding just for rural transit system? And the speaker that was putting the seminar, oh no, it's for everybody. Like, you know, Toronto Transit might have a gap that they need to fill.
So I mean,
Yep.
so we've gone, well, the program's gone from 1,400 riders in 21 to 26,000
Yeah.
riders.
Yeah.
The program's working.
Yeah.
And I think, and then that has to be illustrated. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's, and again, I don't know, transit systems don't usually make money. Breaking even is good, but and keeping fares reasonable so that people can use the service, because a lot of people, I mean, they're getting to medical appointments, whether it's shopping or going to the beach, I don't know, but it is working. So I mean, I guess it's something that I think we should push for, and just say, like, we need this funding, we need some help with that. So, all right, thank you, Madam Mayor.
So I might just jump off what Steve said, because I know Lambton Shores presented to AMO. I can tell you Middlesex County's presented to AMO at Roma for the last 2 years. So they've had 4 presentations with Ministry of Transportation. SCORE has done that. Norfolk's done that. TGO's done that. Like, all of these routes have been doing it for the last 2 years because we were put on notice that the funding was going to be done March 31st. So I'm always, you know, up for advocating, but we have, and essentially stopping short of all of us being in the room together. The Ministry of Transportation has heard this message over and over again, and this is still what they've come back with. So, okay. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, just, the numbers, obviously, like you use the term, and I agree with you, gaining steam. South Huron and Lambton Shores, incredible gaining steam. And that, you know, we represent Lucan Biddulph. We need to look at those numbers, and the numbers are saying 3 people a week, and that's what they are, 3 people a week. That's not gaining steam. I don't know. I wonder if it's because we have Middlesex Connect. People are carpooling, people are walking to work, they have a car. I don't know, but it's just for that many years, and to start with 0 and be at 3 people a week. Again, there's so many expenses in our budget. There obviously it is public transit, and I'm all for paying, and it shouldn't be user pay. And that's not what I'm advocating, but we're at $69 at your new number, which was good to hear. The new number was lower, because before we were $105. So every time a ratepayer drive by our bus stop, they're subsidizing $69 of that ride. Lambton Shores and South Huron, I don't know the other routes, but just this route alone, it's more like $20. It seems like we're more of a convenience stop between Grand Bend and Masonville. And our community is telling us after 4 years, I think they'd be telling us at 3 people a week. You know, I hope you're smart about your decision, Lucan Biddulph. So I don't know, like transit, like your presentation, but I've got to look at the data. And I mean, it's amazing what Huron Park's using, you know, for a population of 500 people. I mean, we've got 3 people a week using it. We have Middlesex Connect. Unless that number 22,800 comes down considerably, I just don't want to mislead yourself. You said you're having a meeting where I sit. I mean, obviously 3 people need to vote in favor of this. Certainly where it sits right now, it concerns me. So that's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple questions here. Let's try to get through. I just wanted to recap the response from other municipalities, because on slide 11, there's 4 of them, but there was a couple more, such as Blue Water you mentioned, and North Middlesex is out. So maybe could you just recap with all the municipalities that are participating and who is in and who is out, please?
Sure. So Blue Water has supported us, has passed a resolution to support. South Huron, we've presented to them. We've had good feedback from them at a staff level. They're going to decide on Monday or Tuesday when their meeting is. Kettle Stony Point have a meet with them next week. They've indicated they do have money for us. And then again, we're working with Plymouth, Wyoming and Goderich to try and see if there's anything we can get out of them. I think there might be.
Okay, thank you for that. And Lambton Shores is a yes then?
Well, yeah, and you can see Lambda Shore is the big. I mean, I don't want to speak for the council, but I mean, our council is pretty committed to it. But there is we can't do it ourselves, obviously. So.
Okay, thank you for that. And you mentioned earlier that North Middlesex said no. So I did want to.
Sorry, just to interrupt. So that's what we're getting back from at the staff level. We need to confirm that with their council, though. So.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned Goderich, and I was going to ask about some of those other communities that are served by this service, because it goes to Goderich, it goes to London, it goes to Strathroy and Sarnia. You mentioned Strathroy is getting cut out, but as far as those other larger centers that are providing a lot of the users of the system, where do they stand with respect to the system?
Yeah, so Goderich, they aren't a big user. I think they're less than that. Like the route, that route doesn't run nearly as much as the other routes. So we're trying to put together what we can kind of get from them to help us out. I don't know what that number will be yet. At the end of the day, we need to figure out how much money we can get from our partners and what kind of system that'll allow us to run. It's really down to that. And the contract with Viego is basically an hourly type thing, right? So every time we have a stop and we have to stop, it costs us hours. It costs money. So at the end of the day, that's what we need to kind of try and figure out. Like I said, Blue Waters has committed to be in. So I think that route will continue. Again, the route 2, obviously the big user is South Huron. So we hope that they can that they'll be able to contribute to it and get us over the hump. But like I said, there will be a limit to what Lambton Shores Council will commit to as well, and we're probably touching up to it soon.
Okay, I mentioned maybe the single tiers of the larger centers like London and Sarnia. Have they been approached or discussed about contributing to the system, or what's their position on it?
We haven't approached them. I would hazard a guess they wouldn't care that much. And their gas tax, they get their gas tax now. So yeah, like they run their own, so they get the gas tax themselves now. So there's no gas tax to be had for us in those areas. The reality is both those larger centers provide the system with revenue through their ridership. So I mean, we could ask London, we could ask Sarnia. I don't know that we'd have much luck in getting that. We've approached others. We've approached Lambton College, and they didn't have, colleges are in tough right now too, so they didn't have any money for us. We've approached, employers who are using the system. They're happy to help out by buying passes and things, but they're not really looking to just to put money straight into the system. We think we can convince them to put advertising money in because they're getting something back, and it's a business expense and all those types of things. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for that information. I think we may see maybe some duplication of service here because there is the Middlesex Connect system. I don't recall exactly where it goes, but I think it has service to Lucan, or it did have service to Lucan. So there's some duplication of service there. So how is Huron Shores, I guess, coordinating, or are they coordinating with that system, or is it a bit of a duplication of service?
So we have talked to them. One of the difficulties, and we certainly will talk to them some more. One of the difficulties is the timing, right? So you try and match up your times, and it ripples through the entire system when you like, we count on 5 minutes per stop. So to try and match up timings, if you're not all on the same timing schedule, it doesn't work to kind of meet at the same time. We've talked about how we could better do that, and we'll keep working on it. I know Susan and have been talking and comparing notes, and they're trying to come up with how they could potentially work together better. I mean, maybe there's a system where we go so far and we stop, and then they carry on. But again, you have to get the timings right, or it ripples through the entire system.
Okay, I'm nearing the end of my questions. Thank you for all the answers. With the looking at that Excel sheet or the budget sheet, where the contracted services go from 750,000 to about 800,000. So that's operating the 4 routes. You mentioned cutting out route number 4. Would that result in a 25% reduction in that contracted services amount?
No, so the budget projection you see there are only the 3 routes. Yeah, and then we've obviously added in, fuel costs increases and things like that to on the expense side with Viego. I mean, we'll have to sign another contract with them. They have to deal with their buses and how old they are and things like that. So that's, and they're really the only service in town that can offer it. So, and they've been great to work with. So yeah, that's kind of the expenses we see. And yeah, that is already the 3 routes.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you, Steve, and thank you, Lambton Shores, for taking the lead on using that CT funding and operating the system in the years that you have.
Do you have a follow-up? Yep, for sure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, I should have asked, you may have mentioned it, so if you have, sorry. So the 22,800, I'm just wondering, just based on our ridership, how did that number come about? Like, where did we get that number from?
Yeah, so basically population, but you'll note that that Lambton Shores is higher than that. So we took the population and spread it across the municipalities, but Lambton Shores, you'll see, pays a higher cost. We took in the Plymouth, Wyoming's population on our side instead of putting it across to everyone else. So
okay, so that all right, thanks. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Just kind of follow up on Councilor Regan, say he did ask on ridership, not population. On that, if you could comment on that on ridership, like we have 3 people a week using it. When you have high ridership like South Huron and Lambton Shores, your highest tax base is as Doug alluded to, is your restaurants and your businesses. So that's your highest tax base. Well, your highest tax base in a community that you're benefiting from with the higher ridership. Like I assume you wouldn't be paying that by population if you had 3 a week. If you did the population of Lucan Biddulph, you wouldn't be here. I don't think. If you just did the numbers for 4,500, whatever you are, multiply it by 5 or 6, and you were 18 people a week, you probably wouldn't be here.
So no, we would.
At 18 people a week riders.
Well, because we're offering the service to everyone in Lucan, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I look at it kind of like if you run, for instance, a garbage system and only half your people put garbage out, but the entire municipality will pay for that system to be in place. That's kind of how we look at it. And at the end of the day, council needs to have their debate on the financial side. We're certainly not here to do that. But that's, it's a service that we're offering. We'd like all of Lucan to use it, and maybe, together with your help, we can make that happen and grow that system. But at the end of the day, it's a system that's offered to everybody.
And I do wonder if the Middlesex Connect, with us getting that service of the Lucan to, I don't know those numbers, so I just don't know them until, like, this is the first time I've seen these numbers, but I do wonder if that I'm going to use the term, is why it appears unneeded. I mean, at 3 people a week. Again, our community's obviously, again, I don't want to use the word disappointed in not using, because again, hopefully me and 2 buddies carpool to work, have carpool to work. My wife carpools to work. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm not disappointed in the numbers, but to your point, we need to realize the numbers. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so the 22,000, which would be our contribution, but we don't know, that's just based on, like, that's not based on what you think we're gonna get gas tax wise. Have you already been able to figure that out? So that is 22,000 would be gas tax money.
So your worship, the gas tax money, it's a formula.
Mhm,
And so
okay.
we are able to, and we've been working pretty close with those folks as
Mhm.
well to make sure we understand that.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's with the gas tax.
Okay. Thank you. If you apply, because you would apply for our gas tax on your behalf, like, right? The transit. So essentially, our gas tax transit can only be used for one system. Like, we can't split it between 2 systems?
So it's a good question, your worship. So currently that's what we understand the system to be. However, we have been talking to them again to explain to them, you've got a model set up for a city and not rural transit. And we explained I think we used this one as the example. And their answer was, yeah, we see what you mean. But we'll keep, the other thing that they've missed, which they promised they're going to fix, is they haven't included First Nations. So we go into Kettle and Stony Point, and we're counting on their gas tax. But right now, the way the legislation is written, they aren't considered a municipality. They've promised they are going to change that for us. But again, we just have to keep throwing the spaghetti at the wall. Hopefully it'll stick.
Well, and I do think, to go back to what I said to Councillor Regan about, the advocating. I mean, I think that is a message that they're hearing from all of these transit systems is you've set up this funding model for a more urbanized center, and they haven't really fully realized what public transit looks like in a rural setting, and they haven't taken all those factors into account. So, I mean, I would hope that as we see this roll out, that there'll be, that there will be tweaks to it to make it more beneficial to everyone, for sure. Okay, because that's interesting about the 2 systems, because obviously, as the deputy mayor said, we have Middlesex County Connect come through, and at this time, I think that they're looking at, what they are going to require funding wise to continue with it as well. So they haven't come to us for an ask yet. But I do think, and I understand what you're saying, Deputy Mayor, but for anybody watching, I would just say, the ask of us is it's not taking out of our budgeted money now. It would be money that could come to us that we're not collecting now. We don't collect gas tax transit money. So essentially, this is a wash. It is tax money.
So through you, your worship, so the contribution would be on top of the gas tax. Yeah, so we need that contribution to get the gas
Okay,
tax.
well then there you go. See?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the 22, so
Yeah.
that's not the gas tax
No, the
contribution.
gas tax is on top of that.
Okay, well then
Yeah.
I'm glad I said that. I'm glad I said that.
Okay.
So then,
No. Yeah. So the mayor just whispered in my ear there. So we need a contribution to get the gas tax. That's
you
what
need
we
the contribution to
Yeah,
get the gas
yeah,
tax, correct? That's right, because you
Yeah.
can only do 75% of gas tax.
yeah,
Yes, okay. So the fixed municipal contributors at 20,000 up to 32, what is that line?
So those are just, for instance, in Plimpton, Wyoming, we're looking at putting just a stop on the way to Sarnia in, like Reese's Corner or something like that. And then they would just contribute, you know, the $5,000 or something to get us gas tax. But like I said, it'd be one stop. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we'll take whatever you want to offer us. The 22 is the formula number that puts, so we've kind of looked at who's really part of our system. And so we see Lambton Shores, Blue Water, South Huron, Lucan Biddulph, and Kellenstone Point as the major players in the system, right? Anyone else we poke into, we'll try and get their, and really the reason for going to any of those is to get their gas tax. Yeah, yeah.
And, okay, so then the other question, and you don't have to answer this because that's your business model, but in taking that Route 3 off the map, so that's taking Strathroy off of that. So they run their own system right now that goes Sarnia, Strathroy into London. And again, I can't speak for them. I mean, that's a pretty difficult system for them to take on their own, for sure. Have you had any conversations with maybe them joining you and somehow?
Not in any kind of depth. We heard that that was going to be a tough route. And again, it wasn't it was frankly one of our worst routes. So that's why if there's no funding available on that side, that you know, for us to run that bus, it did make a lot of sense. Again, it's the hours we got to put in to run the bus. So.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, no, I just had two mixed thoughts here, and you're probably not gonna like either of them. But if we were if because I was unfortunately I'm thinking a little bit more about Middlesex Connect, I gotta be honest, just and what that looks like, what that potential ask is. And now, because I was first sitting here going, you know, again, this part you're not gonna like, do you get, you know, $1,000 a don't, like almost like a donate. Again, I find us a convenient stop between the two. But then if we do that, does that hamper, so you can get the gas tax for your transit, but then does that would hamper them if we were to join Middlesex Connect more financially, you know, if there was an ask, a bigger ask, then they couldn't get the gas tax if we did that with you.
Yeah, so through your worship, they won't give us an answer on that. And in fact, we don't know what happens if, we don't know what happens if you committed to contribution and we got the gas tax and then they came in after. We don't know how we asked the question, who gets it? And they couldn't tell us because, like I said, they haven't contemplated this type of a situation. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to run a system. If you were in Blue Water or South Huron or Kellenstone Point and we're putting money in and we have stop in Lucan and Lucan doesn't put any money in, you know, the questions will get asked from them, right? So we're just trying to put it together and absolutely it costs, it's expensive. But we've shown that we can run it. We've shown that it's when you compare our numbers to anyone else, the numbers are high. So yeah, and I totally understand where you're coming from as far as the funding. And I'll make a point tomorrow to call our contact again and see if they've made any more progress. But you know, of course, our contact changed last month. Yeah, so yeah, and it's just unfortunate that that's the system that they've set up, but it's clearly meant for cities.
Any other questions? Yeah, Jaden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to ask, as you mentioned that there are other rural transit systems, maybe they were using the same funding and maybe they have the same expiry date and that the ridership is good here. Are there any other rural transit systems that is everyone sort of in the same boat? Are some of them more successful than others, or can you just kind of?
So through you, your worship, to answer your question, yes, we're all in the same boat. Are some more successful than others? Absolutely, we are. I know of a couple systems that are just going to shut down. They're just pulling the plug. I know I've spoken to the CAO in Tilsonburg. They under CT ran two separate routes. One was just an internal route in Tilsonburg, and one went out into the rural areas. They're just going to pull the plug on the rural areas and try and run one inside. There's one up in Perth that they're just going to discontinue. So yeah, we're all in the same boat, and you know, it's just the situation we were in. And they were clear that the other kind of thing against us is timing, is that they won't give us any answers on when they'll tell us when OTIF will be awarded. They clearly said that this has nothing to do with CT funding, and that was too bad if that's the way it was rolling out. So
Thank you.
I think it's unfortunate because when that CT funding started back in 2020, I think the whole idea was that you were going to be able to have these systems, and that essentially rural Ontario would be all connected and they would all work together. And they've kind of piecemeal done that. But then the pandemic hit, and then you've got all of your data, and then that was it. The funding was done. And there was no, we're not extending it. They had announced CT funding as a pilot project. And typically with the government, if it's a pilot, it usually carries on in some form or fashion. And then of course that didn't happen. And, our municipalities, public transit systems are difficult enough to run as it is. Rurally, it's another, beast, and it takes years to build up trust. And that is what is so disappointing, because you can see, yes, the Huron Shores model, congratulations, because you have been able to see success and you've been able to gain traction. I do think you're in a nice sweet spot, the communities that you have and who wants to be connected to your communities. But you can see traction in other routes of these systems. And if they shut down 5-6 years from now, if the province comes to communities and say, we're going to try this, you're back to square one and having to rebuild the whole thing again over and over. And it takes years to build up ridership, especially in rural Ontario. So who knows where we'll be. But anyways, thank you for the presentation. We'll look to have a discussion and hopefully get back to you by the end of the month. But yeah, thank you very much.
okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Okay. And with that, I would just need a mover and a seconder to receive that presentation for information, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. Safe travels. Thanks. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we have one set of minutes in front of us from February the 4th, a month ago, my goodness. And if there is anything to be corrected or amended, if not, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to adopt those set of minutes as approved, as circulated. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? Carried. And the business arising from the minutes, I believe that there was something that was added on the 269 Main Street property. And so that's been added, and then the request to arrange a meeting with the new MPP and developers. So I think you brought that forward, Deputy Mayor. So we'll leave that for staff to set that up at the earliest convenience. I don't believe a date has been set when the swearing in and new government takes over, but we'll look to staff to follow up on that. Was there anything else that council wanted added to business arising? Okay, then on to correspondence. In front of us is the annual letter of support requested from the Middlesex London Health Unit regarding the larvicide program. Were there any questions on that? No? Then you've got a recommended motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder on that one, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Were there any other items of correspondence that were received in the last month that council wanted to pull for discussion? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one item that I would like to pull, and seeing that we have our chief building official here tonight, I wanted to ask about item number 9, which is the resolution from the Township of McGarry about amending the building code to add some pre-approved affordable housing plans. And I just wanted to ask Arnie if he's willing to answer that question, if he has any, I guess, input on that about those proposed amendments to the building code. Is there, is this something you've heard about before, or is it something unique?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the mayor to Councillor Hodgins, I appreciate the question in advance. We communicated very briefly before council, and this resolution is news to myself. So I've actually shared this with other chief building officials in the regions in case they get the same question. In reviewing the Township of McGarry's statement, there's 4 categories. Generally, it's to make affordable housing more affordable economically, to assist with homeless individuals and families that need affordable housing. And there's 4 categories that they speak to. I'm just going to speak to them really briefly. The first is for standardized designs. Well, the federal government is working on federal or standardized designs as we speak. There's recently been an announcement of a housing design catalog that the government's working on. And it's nothing that would have to change in the Ontario Building Code. It's up to the local building department if they would accept those that catalog. So that's really underway. I'm going to skip number 2 for a second. Item number 3, community integration, and they want to ensure that these housing designs can be integrated. That generally should be no problem. Most housing designs can be integrated with the community that they're in. And the 4th bullet is to support diverse models, including various types of housing, such as tiny homes, modular units, converted shipping containers. Really, that can be done today. That's generally in the building code. It may take some engineering, but there's nothing new with that request either, in my opinion. The 2nd bullet, though, it talks about flexible design standards, which allows for innovative building designs and materials to meet the affordability criteria. To me, that takes away from the intent of the Ontario Building Code is to provide a consistent framework. Consistency that you can build, if you can build a house in Lucan, the same house can be built in Collingwood, in Ottawa. It meets the same standards, same code. I'm not a fan of flexible standards based on one municipality to the next. Again, we can go to flexible standards as long as there's equivalency, as long as the designer confirms that what's proposed is equivalent. I've seen proposals for straw insulated houses instead of standard insulated houses. We may consider that as an equivalent insulation value. So I think that flexible design standards, it's up to the building department, but I think that kind of crosses the line that allows for inconsistency across the province. So I really wouldn't support it.
Okay, thank you for that. And I wasn't looking for a motion to support. I just thought I'd pick your brain on that. So thank you for the information, Arnie.
Thanks. Did you have anything else, Councillor Hutchins? Councillor Westman?
Yeah, I'd like to draw attention to the Autism Ontario World Autism Day proclamation. So I think as a community, we have a lot of families in our community that are living with autism in their household, and I think we need to support that as a community because these struggles are a daily thing for families, and we need to support that. That's my 2 cents.
And how do you want to support that?
Yeah, just making a public statement of support. That's it. I think that would be suitable enough that on our social media or whatever, we could make a statement that recognizing World Autism Day. Okay.
Do we need a motion or can we just give direction for social? Okay.
All right.
Okay. Any other items of correspondence that council wanted to discuss? Okay, seeing none, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive those items of correspondence for information, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. On to committee reports, Blue Water.
Nothing.
CEDC.
There's our staff have a report tonight, so I'm going to defer to staff for that one for this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
And we have a Lake Huron meeting on Thursday. Nothing from fire boards, ABCA.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We did just meet last week at the ABCA. A new chair and vice chair were elected for the board. So the new chair is Ray Chartrand from Huron East, and the vice chair is Adrian Cornelison from North Middlesex. There was an interesting presentation from staff on managing invasive species like Phragmites. ABCA has some really strong partnerships with County of Huron and municipalities in Huron County especially. Not so much within the Middlesex County. But Nathan Scholier is a great resource there, lots of information. So if our municipality is looking for some information on Phragmites or dealing with those, certainly ABCA has some great resources there. And lastly, a prominent ABCA staff member announced his retirement end of June. Jeff Cade is going to be retiring, so he's a big part of the team over there. So he'll be missed. So if you work with Jeff, certainly reach out and wish him well.
Great, thank you very much for that. Yeah, that'll be a big change. Okay, and Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a set of minutes attached from our last meeting of February 12th. If there's any questions, I can answer that. I also saw that staff has a activity report this evening, and a lot of that information will be covered in that report.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Okay, on to our staff reports, and I believe that Catherine is delivering the first report in front of us tonight.
That's correct. So this report in front of you is to gain approval to enter in a ladder truck agreement with the municipality of South Huron. So in our fire service master plan, it talks about the need for a ladder truck within Lucan Biddulph. So the cost of that right now to buy one is not feasible. So the chief of the Lucan Fire Department has been working with the chief at South Huron and working on this agreement to use their truck if needed. So the fire board for Lucan Biddulph, they discussed this as well and approved the recommendation to bring forward to council for adoption. And South Huron Council has already approved it. So what will happen is that will pay an annual fee to have basically like a retainer fee for them to be available for call. And then if we use the service, they'll use the MTO rates based on however that works with hourly rates and so forth. And that would only be able to use the truck within Lucan Biddulph. It's not within where the other areas where our fire department service. Because if we get another municipality, those municipalities have to then enter into an agreement to use the truck. So that's really the gist of it. If you have any other questions, I hope I can answer.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? Yeah, Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just comment first, I think it's great to see this and good job getting this in place. Certainly, I think this is better than us maybe buying one of these things. They're pretty expensive. And just a question, I'm not sure if Catherine will have the answer, but what do you know the threshold for the size of buildings that this would be used for? Would it only be for like the 4-story ones or the 3-story, or does it depend on the nature of the situation?
What I understand is like could be used for also like multi-story, but also in some subdivisions with houses are built so close together, they need it to get over the housing, is my understanding as well, is one of the concerns that the chief had in order to service those types of communities as well. So it'd be up to the fire chief, our fire chief that's on the scene to decide what's needed.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, if we required the services of the ladder truck, it would come to our municipality. Is it South Huron's fire team that is operating that? It's not like they bring it here for us to use, right? It's like
Correct.
we'll operate it.
They bring their own team of trained firefighters to use it, and then it's all, I think, in the agreement how delegation authority and all that works at the scene.
Thank you.
Like our chief's still in charge of the scene, but it's South Huron, they would operate their equipment. Okay. Yes, Councillor Regan.
May I just add, so being on the fire board and in the sort of the chair of this fire service master plan group. So one of the things that they had talked about was the fire, to get the ladder truck, but the biggest concern I think the chief had it was just the fact that those buildings, as Catherine said, the buildings are a lot closer together, and that ladder truck actually serves to help with that. There's with fire suppression systems, I'm just what the chief has told me, the fire suppression systems in buildings now is very sophisticated, but it's just getting in between those buildings, and that was one of the concerns that the chief had. And so I just thought I would just support what Catherine just said. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the agreement? Okay, if not, then we do have a motion in front of us that the report be received for information and further that council approve a bylaw instructing the mayor and clerk to execute a ladder truck agreement with the municipality of South Huron. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Was there anything else from the CAO clerk department? Nothing. Okay. Okay, we do have from building and bylaw. We've got our fourth quarter building report, and I think right now am I only welcoming one member of the team up to the speaker's desk? Okay, so Arnie, I'll let you get settled and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have some assistance for the next staff report. Yes. So I'm pleased to present our year-end report for 2024 for Lucan Biddulph's building permit activity. Pleased to say that 2024 was generally a very good year. Significant improvements from what we've seen in 2023. New dwelling units created. We have to 49. 49 new dwellings, up from 31, so a significant increase. Plus, we have a new 57-bedroom apartment building that has been started in Lucan Biddulph last year. So construction values have increased from 28 million up to 46 million. And I'd like to special notice to, or a special, notice of Granton and how successful Granton has been over the past year with 19 new dwellings in that village. Fees paid to Middlesex Center from Lucan Biddulph totaled approximately $98,000. That's staff hours and mileage. And looking forward to 2025, we think this will be a strong year, consistent with last year at least, as our hopes. And one item of information to council is that Middlesex County has initiated development charges, which will impact all of our municipalities, fees ranging from $4,300 to $5,600, depending if it's a semi or a single. So that will be new, and it's a new expense to our home building community. In 2021, we extended our building service agreement with Lucan Biddulph to include Adelaide Metcalfe, Southwest Middlesex, and North Middlesex. So in this report, I included some tables. The first table in my report speaks to building permit activity across the county, our 5 service areas in the county. And it's just information of how Lucan Biddulph compares to others. Again, so this year it was a year of the winners and the ones that weren't the winners. I'm not going to say the losers, but it's the winners and the ones that didn't shine so well. And Lucan Biddulph and North Middlesex really were the shining communities. North Middlesex, I guess, for council's information, our busiest and fastest growing settlement area in our 5 areas, in our 5 service areas, is Ailsa Craig. Ailsa Craig saw 44 new dwellings in the village alone. So it was a very good year for North Middlesex, and I see that to continue for them next year, as well as for Lucan Biddulph. Again, based on the numbers, Lucan Biddulph was one of the winners last year. Starts in Middlesex Center really did not improve much over last year, unfortunately. Middlesex Center is largely geared towards singles, and that market just hasn't come back yet. Thankfully, we do have some townhouse developments. Townhouses are very popular across the county, so hopefully it'll be a better year for everybody. Second table is a comparison of what Lucan Biddulph has seen over the past several years. We tried to accumulate this just for information about fees generated, construction value, the number of dwellings and permits. Again, you can see the last year's numbers much better than 2023, and because that one apartment building, the $20 million value of that apartment building really bumped up our construction values. The third table is a breakdown generally of the third quarter of last year and last year's totals, and then that in comparison to 23's totals of the different the variety of building permits that we issue, whether it be singles or apartments or garages and pools and septic systems. They're all summarized in this table for the like I said, the fourth quarter and year-end numbers. And the fourth table is there to show council where the development is happening. Like I mentioned before, Granton has seen 19 new homes last year. Lucan has seen 28 plus the apartment building. Again, total up from previous years, so that's good news. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnie. Any questions for Arnie at this point? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, if I may. Thank you, Artie. Thank you. It's good news, good news. I do have a question about building permits. So recently I kind of tagged along with North Middlesex to try recycling, and I found out that if my understanding is that some of their building permits include a clause or part of it says that any demolition, any materials have to be recycled. And I'm just wondering if we have that in our township. If somebody's demolishing a building, if they're taking out 2x4s or drywall or whatever it is, shingles, does that have to be recycled?
Through the mayor, we do not have a bylaw requiring that. I can look further into that if that's something that council is interested in. I'm not sure how we would enforce it, to be honest. I think it's good business practice, and maybe there's value in that recycling, whether it's shingles off an old house or the wood. It's a good question. I've not heard that though.
Okay. No, I would just be interested in getting some information on that because I know other municipalities are doing that. I did ask, and they did say they're having success with it. People are doing it. And again, just if you're ripping, apartments or buildings apart or whatever, that material does actually get, and I guess apparently it's part of the building permit as well, is what I'm being told. So yeah, so I think it's something we should pursue. So
Okay. I will look
Yeah.
into that. Okay, get back to
Thank you.
council.
I'm good. Thanks.
Anything else for Arnie on? Yep, Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I wasn't gonna say anything, but, maybe not on 2024 building, but building in general, and just with the kind of situation that's going on currently in the news, tariffs. Does that have any specific impacts on the current building environment locally and maybe more generally? Or do you have any kind of insights on that, Arnie, to share with us?
Yeah, through
Like
the,
CNN. We should have an expert in the industry.
through the mayor, last week we met with the home building community. We had a little conference or a seminar or a half-day seminar, and we had London Home Builders Association there speaking very briefly to its members. The topic didn't come up specifically, but it's a concern for sure, whether it's the materials that they use to build houses or the refrigerators that they put in those new houses, what prices, how new homes are going to be impacted. I don't have an answer exactly right now, but it's definitely a concern for the industry. And I think we're learning as we go along, but I can certainly maybe report back as well from what I can hear from them. They're still learning.
Maybe we'll wait and see what happens over the next 48 hours or, but no, thanks. Just delay them.
But I mean, you are you're in regular contact with developers, even just to, report back. I mean, it doesn't have to be next meeting, but, as to what you are hearing and the impact that they're feeling, I think that would be good for us to hear as well. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, it's good.
Any other questions? I was curious on which table is it in? It's in table 3. All of like the different types of permits and everything and housing starts, because the values, okay, that table. So just on the ARUs, because there was great hope, that ARUs would help with the housing crisis and there'd be great uptake. Well, we haven't seen any in 2024. Do you foresee that changing? Do you think it's just maybe the nature of our communities and maybe ARUs are more the answer for more urbanized centers? Just wondered what your take was on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mayor. There has been a very slow uptake on the ARUs. We've had a couple purposely built new homes. Unfortunately, it's a couple. We had one in Ilderton. I can think of one in Kilworth as well. This year, we're looking at Housing Accelerator Fund, where we're coming up with an ARU guideline and some pre-drawn designs that can be used maybe by home builders or the residents themselves. We're hopeful that that people will take up that more often than what we've seen. It's a very good selling feature for roughing it into a basement of a new house, designed as an AR to allow for future ARU use. But our market right now, it's not there. There's not a lot of interest in it.
Interesting. Okay, if there aren't any questions on this, then I would any more questions on this, then I would get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next one. Be like, the price is right. Come on down, Dan.
Through the mayor and council, So about 3 years ago, Middlesex Center hired a new bylaw enforcement officer, and we realized that we've not really had that formal introduction of staff to council. So I'd like to introduce Dan Allery. Dan's, all of our building inspectors are also appointed as bylaw officers, but that's Dan's primary role, and he does it really well. So Dan's had some involvement up here. Some of you may have spoken to him or heard of Dan, but preparing this report, Dan asked if I wanted him to come on up, and I said, absolutely, yeah, come up and I'll at least introduce you to council. Dan's an elected member of the board of directors for the Municipal Law Enforcement Officers Association. So we're pleased to have that quality of staff person. So introduce Dan.
So it's great that you're here, Dan. I've had the opportunity to meet you and see you, and I don't know whether all of council has, but certainly I would encourage all of you to introduce yourselves to him when you can. And it's great that you're here and glad that you're part of the team.
Thanks. So we are here to provide council a summary of bylaw enforcement activities in Lucan Biddulph for the past year. As council knows, we at Middlesex Center provide bylaw enforcement services for Lucan Biddulph. So just a brief report here provides just some background information of what has gone on over the last year. Some background, we've been doing this since 2012. We've had this bylaw enforcement relationship to go with our building permit relationship. And something new for 2025 is that we've expanded this relationship to include Adelaide Metcalfe as well, to provide bylaw enforcement services to them. As we have building inspectors also in the Adelaide Metcalfe, we'll likely draw on their time more than Dan's. There'll be no impact on service levels in Lucan Biddulph for that agreement. And for council's information, fees paid to Middlesex Center last year to Middlesex, or paid by Lucan Biddulph to Middlesex Center totaled about $19,000 last year. So just a high level analysis, we've had 49 files created in bylaw enforcement matters in Lucan Biddulph. That's not just 49 trips, that's 49 files. Each of those may have more than one, maybe 3 to 5 potentially travels here to follow up what the situation is. So that's 49 new bylaw files, up from 43 in 2023. So slight increase. Through that time, we did not issue any parking offense notices. That's a ticket for failure to do whatever the crime was. We'll call it a crime. But typically, we're education over enforcement, and generally it's warnings and it's conversations before going straight to a ticket book, and that's been really well received by your residents. So we try to operate that way as often as we can. Table 1 of the report is a summary generally of what we've seen of the different situations and comparator to what we've seen over the last couple of years under those categories, whether it's animal control, property standards, and noise. Generally, those are the busy ones. We've also put that into a table to kind of graph out what's the busiest, what's the most common issues we deal with. So with that said, we're here to answer any questions the council may have.
Okay. That's great. Any questions on the report that has just been presented? Councillor Westman.
That's to you, Madam Mayor. Snow, what's that mean?
So snow calls could be anything from somebody just taking the snow and putting it on the roadway or not.
Yep.
We've had one complaint where somebody was blowing their snow onto their neighbor's property, so I put it under that table there.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, Deputy Mayor?
Just a comment, Dan, I mentioned this to staff before, and I believe, Arnie, I'm not sure about yourself, but with spring coming, I'm always concerned about the vacant properties and how they look. Certainly we have beautiful flowers and really vibrant downtown, and it's just disappointing to see the vacant properties sometimes with the height of the weeds and it vacant or not vacant. Obviously, I don't expect you to go around subdivisions and look for things, but I certainly would appreciate, and I would hope all of council and staff would appreciate attention from the start of town to the end of town on anything early in the season to nip it in the butt, so that ideally it's looking better for the summer and fall, because it seems to take time after notice for someone to do something, which is disappointing. But if you could start on that early, I guess it's a request. So thank you.
Yeah, we do have some repeat offenders that we are aware of, so understood.
Any other comments? Okay, well, that's great. Thank you very much. Not only for the reports, but then just for the relationship that we have with both building and bylaw. I think it's a strong relationship and we look forward to continuing to work together. So, great.
Thank you.
Thanks. With that, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, finance, Catherine.
Thank you. So this report I have for you tonight is just for information, and it's to provide council with the statement of the remuneration and expenses paid in 2024, and that's required as for legislation in the municipal act. So it's just a statement showing basically the salaries and then expenses paid in regards to conferences mostly.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please? Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Did you have anything verbal, Catherine, or anything? Okay. Public Works, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of few reports tonight. The first one is the one that I expect will gain a little more comments from council, and I understand why. So the first one is our 2026 replacement snowplow. I went out and got quotes. We looked at going through the canoe program with Viking up in Mount Forest. We were successful with the last one, and we talked to them, and actually they do have a truck coming in June. It is exactly the truck we would be interested in. It's a heavy duty rural snowplow chassis, and we got them to quote the same snowplow equipment that we currently have to replace the unit, the 2015 unit. Having said all that, the cost of it came in pretty close to our budget number. The cost came in at $407,165 plus HST. We currently have in the budget, $402,000. And if we look at what we would get back on the surplus if we sold it, we'd be fine. Having said all that, one of the items that I did want to talk to council about in this report, and I do have a concern with it, is the threat of tariffs on how this affects the truck chassis. So the truck chassis does come from the United States. The equipment manufacturer is Canadian. And in the build sheet assigned to this truck, there is a statement that says tariffs will be passed along to the buyer of the unit. In discussions with Viking, there's really not a lot of information and not a lot of, kind of direction on how tariffs are going to be affecting the chassis, what amounts, there's really so much up in the air on it. There's really no direction I can give council on how tariffs could be applied or what volume or what amount could be applied to that. So there is a bit of concern there. The truck chassis does come in at $225,800. So it is about a little over half the cost of the snowplow. Talked with the CEO about this, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit. But one of the items we did look at is this truck is 11 years old. It is 1 year past its due date to be replaced. Each year we do keep it past the due date. We do run the risk of increased maintenance costs on the unit. And we also talked about whether tariffs would still be around next year. And what effect do we just keep delaying this every year if there's a threat of tariffs affecting it? So having said all that, I do recommend, based on that, this unit is exactly what the township needs. This unit is something the township does need. So I am recommending that we move forward with it. But I just want to make sure that council's aware that if they do approve it, there is concern around the tariffs that could be involved with it.
Okay, thank you for that. And not really surprising, the added information. Questions or comments? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, sorry, so the tariffs aren't on it right now, right? Like, I mean, it's there to, I just want to understand, it's there to buy right now. And so if you bought it now, there would be no tariffs on it, on the chassis part of it?
Yeah, and through the mayor, and I'm certainly not an expert,
No.
but the way I understand it is tariffs can come in, can be leveled at any time through the process, even though this chassis has been bought. And it has been priced, it has been quoted, it is going through the line to be built. But until it actually arrives in Canada, and finishes out of the factory, there's no guarantee, that tariffs cannot apply in some form to the truck chassis.
Okay. You'll have to ask, I'll have a follow-up in a sec. Thank you.
And you're expecting to get the truck early 2026, are you? So am I reading that right?
Yeah, so the chassis would arrive in June of this year.
Oh, June of this year, the chassis.
June, yeah, the chassis would arrive in June. We would be able to lock that price in, obviously. And I say lock in, the price is actually locked in.
Yeah.
If we take it. It's the threat of tariffs affecting it that would end as soon as we get the truck.
Yeah.
In June.
Yeah, because coming the other way, we're not sure, I don't think, of Canada's stance on it's not everything, so we're not sure. So you're right, that might not be affected, whereas I think the other way, I believe it's everything, where our way, it's not everything, so. And we're definitely upside down on the exchange, which nothing we can do, so gotcha. And that obviously is at today's exchange rate, that price?
Yeah, that quote is
It's
the
current,
quote that I quote here is today's quote
on
on
today's.
today's price.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
What happens? When do we pay for it? I guess that's the question.
Madam Mayor, that's an interesting question. So we have this purchase, really, we came to council to get direction to start this process with the idea that the truck gets ordered in 2025 with a payment in 2026. So the idea through the budget and the equipment reserve fund is that it would come out of the account in 2026.
And then I guess if we were to pay for it today, if we were to say, let's pay for it today, we would pay today's exchange rate. And essentially, I'm assuming no tariffs.
So I think until the truck actually can be delivered, crosses the border, I think we run the risk of tariffs. We're locking in the price.
So,
The
right,
price
it's
that I
like
have in
when
the
you,
report
it's
is,
like when you get something and you've got to essentially pay duty on it, right?
Yeah.
Even though you paid for it, okay, got it. So paying for it today is not necessarily taking that threat away. Okay, gotcha. The only thing it would help us with is the exchange rate, and we don't know we don't know where that's going. Okay. Okay. What's that? Did you?
Right now, in our reserve schedule, we don't have the
Yeah.
funds saved to
Yeah.
pay for it. It's in our 2026 plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I don't think necessarily in the first round of Canada to US, it may not be included, but then There's the second round that's going to go into effect in 21 days, and that's, I think, the larger package, but I don't know if that's been fully fleshed out what that is, right? Like, exactly.
Madam Mayor, so, and again, we've talked about this because it's not an easy, it's a bit of a, you're kind of rolling the dice either way. If we keep the other truck for another year or maybe 2 years, we run the risk of paying extra in repairs. The thing that concerns me is the tariffs are an unknown cost. It may not cost us any, it may cost us 25%. Repairs, we could easily spend 10%, of that cost. We could easily do a $20,000 repair if we lost something big on the truck. Yeah, I'm comfortable with repairs. The truck is still running. It's in good shape. It's going to have to do next winter again. I'm not saying that the truck is in any sort of desperate need to be repaired, but after next winter, and we delay it a year, we know we got to do another winter. So we got to do 2 more winters with it. And that's what worries me a little bit.
Well, I think this is, we can have a whole discussion on it, but this whole threat of tariffs, this is what's creating chaos for everybody because nobody's, if we're going to let it essentially could stall our business on a number of fronts, right? So I think we have to forge forward, right? I don't think we've got there was a reason why you recommended in the budget and our asset management plan that we need to replace it. Just because of the threat of tariffs, that doesn't take the need to replace it away, right? Or is there any other discussion on this or any other questions or comments? All right, well, we do have a recommended motion in front of us. I don't know, should it be reworded in any way because right now the quote speaks to the 407,000. Should it be at all amended to reflect that could change should tariffs be imposed? Yeah. So what are you thinking?
Tariff.
Okay. Okay, I think you just say, so I think that's good. And further, I wouldn't even put that, I would just put tariff.
Potential tariff.
Yeah. So that we receive the report and further that council authorizes staff to accept the Viking Civ's quote in the amount of $407,165 plus HST and purchase a snowplow tandem truck with Viking Civ's snow equipment, and further that council acknowledge the potential tariffs in addition to the quoted price. Okay with that? Mover and a seconder then. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Yep.
Madam, just a follow-up is the one thing that I would say is that because of all the unknowns going to happen over the next little while, with this purchase, our fleet is in really good shape. We do have one snowplow. I believe it's a 2017. It certainly can do a number more years before it is in need of replacement. And by then, hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel for knowing exactly how this is all going to shake out. So.
Okay, well, that is good to know. Because that hopefully helps us. Okay, your next report, Jeff.
So the next report is more of an information report Madam Mayor, and I did get some questions around this, and it's to do with some of our neighbors have they've declared a significant weather event, and I've been asked, should we have done this, or does the township need to do this? And so I brought this report more for information, just so everybody understands what the words significant a weather event and declaring it actually means in some cases that the municipalities are using it for. So just a little background, the township does need to, or a municipality does need to acknowledge that there is a winter season, and we do need to endorse a winter maintenance program. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm going to bring this information forward in the fall. We'll have a well laid out winter program coming. What that program will be around is regulation 366, which is the minimum maintenance standard regulations. In those regulations, it lays out a number of items that a municipality is supposed to, or guides a municipality and how it maintains its infrastructure to a standard which can classify a infrastructure in repair or out of repair. And in that minimum maintenance standards, there is a lot based around winter maintenance. There's a good portion of it is around winter maintenance. And in that winter maintenance, if the weather conditions become extreme and that has caused the municipality not to be able to meet those standards that are laid out in the minimum maintenance standards, which is in their winter program, which is outlined in their winter program. In that regulation, there is the ability to declare a significant weather event. And when you do declare that, it's very simple. You can announce it in a number of different ways, whether it's through the media or on your website, social media, that sort of thing. You just have to declare it, document it, time and what's going on. It's certainly not a difficult thing to process. It is not connected with our emergency team. It's slightly different. It's an announcement, and what it does is it suspends the minimum maintenance standards that the township is working under. You still have the same obligations. You still have the obligations of clearing snow. You still have the obligations of correcting slippery conditions. But some of the obligations on your timelines to have that completed are suspended until you can get those done and the weather event is ended. So the weather event can end, you can correct and bring your road in repair, then you can then you fall back under your minimum maintenance standards. Keep in mind, these requirements in the minimum maintenance standards are not basically they're type of Canadian standards. They're based on requirements that we live in Canada and we maintain roads for winter conditions. So declaring a significant weather event is something out of the ordinary. It's unusual. Circumstances may be concerning, circumstances may be dire. You're not going to be able to meet the standard that you have signed up for under your winter program. I think it's a great tool to have in place, that if you are not going to meet your minimum standards, you should be declaring a significant weather event. However, I would point out this is not about educating or communicating to the public the conditions of the road. That is a wholly separate process, in that we should have communications going out, no matter whether we are declaring a significant weather event or not declaring a significant weather event. And I use in the report an example on the February 16th when we had high winds and a lot of snow. The situation was hazardous on our roadways. It was going on for an extended period of time. Our staff, we do not keep staff 24 hours. After 13 hours of on time, they do have to go home. So we do schedule our time so that through the middle of the night, our staff is resetting their clocks and coming back in the early mornings, working through the day and into the evening hours if they have to, and then off home they go again, which in this event they did. The event continued for a number of days, and our guys did this rotation as the weather event continued. The winds went down, the snow stopped. We cleared our roads within the 16 hours required under the minimum maintenance standards. We met the standard. That does not mean those roads were not hazardous. That does not mean that some of our roads were impassable in the middle of the night. That just means that we met the standard that we were required to do in Ontario. If we found that we were not able to clear those roads in 16 hours, we should have been declaring a significant weather event to relieve us from the minimum maintenance standards. It's a liability issue, really. It really, if somebody were to say that we neglected to do our duty and tried to take us to court over it, by releasing our ability under the significant weather event, it covers us. One of the other tools that has been happening and you'll see out there is that some municipalities will not issue a significant weather event, but they'll close a section of infrastructure that is dangerous or they're not being able to maintain to the minimum maintenance standards. You'll see the MTO does this a lot with a lot of their sections when they know they cannot, get the standards and keep that road open to their standards. Just might back up a little bit. The standard to keep the 401 open is a lot different than keeping the standard open on Breen Drive with no houses on it. But the minimum maintenance standards do address that. They do have a system in there that you're able to compare different roads. You can compare roads in Sault Ste. Marie to Windsor to the 401 to Breen Drive. So there is in the minimum maintenance standards, and it's online. If people want more information, they can read it, and it explains how that is all processed. I still think we need a really good way to communicate our conditions of our roads to people. I think that's becoming more important in today's society with social media and websites and the 511 and that sort of thing. People are now living in a world where they want to be able to look up and see the road conditions. So I think that's an important aspect of that. And I think maybe we can do a better job at that from this winter. I think we've maybe we could do better. And I think it needs to be something that's tailored, not just fly by the seat of my pants or fly by our seat of our pants, but let's set up a way that we can communicate to our residents what the road conditions and how they're functioning out there. One of the things I would just mention, and I don't have this in the report, but it came to light this weekend. We had extremely high winds, a little bit of snow, but the snow itself was not affecting the overall traffic. It was the wind and the visibility. Highways were shutting down. The OPP were requesting road closures. Unfortunately, with our road system, we're kind of we're not a commuter road system, we're a collector road system. So people use them out of their home. So there's a knowledge there that we should be telling people that the roads are in bad shape due to visibility, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to close them. People have to use common sense if they're living on their roads, whether they leave their laneway. Having said that, if there's a need to close Highway 4 because that's a commuter or a connecting link between Exeter and Lucan, that's a different story. So this weekend was a really prime example of how communications have to go out and talk about the hazards, but it's not necessarily about the minimum maintenance standards or a significant weather event. Was that significant on Saturday? That was one of the worst things we've seen all winter. There is no doubt about it. But that wasn't, we weren't ready to declare it a significant weather event because it was such hazardous conditions. So this report is really kind of about making that distinction. There has been some municipalities need to go to the significant weather event. They had to reopen some of the roads and it took time to get those roads open back up. And I think it's a great tool and we should keep it there. But we shouldn't use it every day that we have a hazardous situation because you end up being the little boy that called wolf one too many times. And I think that's about it. I think on my closing there, I talked about this winter has prevented some significant challenges. But I confidently, our road clearing has been excellent. I don't think I have any concern the way our trucks and our staff have conducted themselves on the roadside. I do have some concern on the sidewalk side, but it's not so much about the events that we've seen, but the resources that we have in place and what we can do better. So I've talked about that. There is a follow-up report on the sidewalks to come to council to talk about more about the winter maintenance that happened on the sidewalks.
Okay, thank you for all that, Jeff. Lots to digest in that. I saw your hand up, Deputy Mayor.
No, I just want to thank Jeff for the report and the information and have a better understanding. My thing was always with the equipment, sometimes we'd get an update that equipment was broken and down, and then and maybe it said it in the email, Jeff, and if it did, I apologize. Now no minimum standard. Because always in my mind, again, not, you said everything about weather, and I've never said about weather. I've always talked about equipment breakage that you can't help with bad weather. So for me, I was always thinking, are we meeting minimum standards? How long is the plow going to be broke or can't go out or function, or maybe closing sidewalks? So again, I guess, then I guess not necessarily weather, obviously bad weather is not crying wolf about bad weather, but if our equipment's down, you can't control that if we have bad weather. So I'm glad to know that we would declare an event with not necessarily bad weather, but for me, it was always about equipment breaking down. Not always, a few times. I think overall we did a great job, or your staff did a great job on doing the snow off the roads. So that's better information now for me for an understanding. That we were meeting minimum maintenance standards with the broken equipment that we've had to endure. And I think me and Jeff talked a little bit, which at budget time I'll talk about that, is the snow removal and what the expectations are of our community and areas in our community, being the school and that I'm sure we're all going to be, it's very expensive to do that, but what areas and snow removal is probably another thing to talk about another time, which will be budget time, which we talked about. But anyways, just that. Thank you.
Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, so yes, Jeff, I just wanted to thank you and your guys. That was monumental what you guys did. And I did have maybe just a question or a thought, because we talked earlier about this today. Just so in our county, a very large county, we know that, for example, like Lucan could be getting hammered with a streamer, and then 10 clicks either side, there's nothing. What I'm just wondering, as we're thinking about climate change and we're thinking about these events maybe becoming more and more frequent, is there any thought, or is it an idea perhaps that when, for example, if one area is getting hit really bad, that we can go and ask and request, say, help from another municipality that's not getting hammered? And of course, we would reciprocate down the road as well. I don't know. The reason I'm saying that is the theme that I heard during these events was just sort of safety. And I know, and this is not a reflection on anything that you guys did or did not do, but I'm just wondering down the road. I mean, if we're, we've got a streamer, I think some of the times that we've, when I first moved here, there was that streamer that parked itself over top of Lucan for 3 days, and no one, and then 10 miles away, there's nothing. I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity to sort of have maybe a cooperative of sorts, that where we could request sort of help, sort of just to help us sort of, for a half a day or something, just to sort of get us ahead of the game so that we can catch up. Because I know the guys can only work 13, 14 hours. I mean, it's not, and it's, so anyway, is there anything we can do with that, or?
And through the mayor. So that's a good question. And you kind of lead up to that. So, and I don't know whether to start at one end or go start right at the other end. I'll start with the, that we do have to put our resources in place to fight winter activity, do our winter maintenance. So we cannot, we have to rely on our own resources for that. At what level does that storm become too much for us not to meet the minimum maintenance standards? Doesn't mean that we still cannot fix the roads or fix the situation we're under. It just means we need more time. And a great example of that was South Huron. They were fighting those extremely high winds to get the banks back and get the snow pushed back. They just needed extra time. It was a lot of work for their own equipment and their own resources, but they needed the extra time. Having said that, if that storm had lasted another couple of days, or we would have had even more snowfall, that it became life-threatening to open up these roads for people on the back roads, or we had dairy farms that trucks couldn't get into, and just because we said we have a significant event, but we were going to be days to get these roads open, we would be looking at all the resources we could find, whether it's private or other public resources. And other public managers across Middlesex County has said, if we are in a life-threatening or if we are in a desperate need of resources, reach out. Having said that, as long as you're managing the situation, that's just because it's taken a little bit longer, we significant weather event it, we take a little bit longer, we get the roads opened up, everybody's good, we go back to normal, everything's fine. I don't think we need to have an agreement where we're bringing in South Middlesex equipment, because then we're going to have to start paying standby time, or are we paying those guys if it breaks? There's a lot of stuff there, but having said that, if it's life-threatening, we're all going to help each other in Middlesex County. And whether it's a large ice storm or a large blizzard event, and we've had it back in the 70s where we just got bulldozers to open the roads. Anybody with one, please come to the township and we're just going to start moving. If we had to do that again, we would. But at the same time, I think this winter has been a good example of, it's been extreme, but I think all the municipalities around the area have done a very good job at correcting the problems. Even Middlesex County, if you talk to them about the Whalen line, Granton line up there was nights those roads were impassable. But the guys kept working away at it, and they opened them up under the minimum maintenance standards. So even they did not declare a significant weather event. Doesn't mean the roads weren't hazardous. It does not mean that you shouldn't have been on them. It just means they were meeting the minimum maintenance standards.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a quick one. Yep. Thank you, Jeff. You and your staff done a great job with, we've had some major winter events. Just two questions. One, do you feel like we have the staff resources and the equipment that we need to manage this type of winter? And the second question was, for the winter season, do we staff up or hire seasonal staff to support winter operations?
Yeah, this winter we did not hire seasonal. We had an individual for each piece of equipment, and we rolled on. We have in the past hired some part-time help on the sidewalk side of things, or to help fill in. But this year, we added a full-time position that we felt we didn't need the extra seasonal help. As for equipment, I think 3 snowplows, and this is where it becomes, if one snowplow were to break down, we still have 3 guys that can operate 2 snowplows. So you start double shifting the equipment. There's a way to manage the equipment so you can make the system work. And that's the level of resources, level of service versus risk of breakdowns. I think we got it covered under the snowplows. I think and plus we also have a grader that can act as a snowplow. So we actually have 4 units for the municipality for doing roads. We only have 1 sidewalk machine. When it does break down, we don't have that backup. We're under we're relying on getting that machine going again before we can clear sidewalks. And there's a concern in our asset management plan. I have a concern with that. I think we need to address that, but I'll bring that forward under another report at what I truly think what we need to do there.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Looking forward to that report on the sidewalk and the future winter maintenance program.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, thanks for the report. I think better understanding of, you know, how to declare and when to declare, and I appreciate that. And again, maybe this isn't the time to talk about it, but you did touch on the communication with residents on, you know, the conditions of the road and all of that. And maybe that is something, a report or a plan to come back in conversation with Lisa. How does that work? I mean, there's 511 out there. And I think we've all, you know, become familiar with that over time. But is it reflective of real time? You know, you hear stories of it's still closed, but then, you know, social media says, well, there's no barricades up. And so I also then, when we talk about levels of service, I do believe we have a responsibility to communicate conditions and all of that. But again, then if it's a standard that we're setting, it's keeping it up to date, and how do we do that in real time? I mean, you can't be just refreshing every 20 minutes, but so again, I'm not expecting anything today, but I think we have to think about what does communication look like to our residents, because it absolutely is it is something that you can see on social media, that people are looking, you know, to municipalities for that information in real time. So we're going to have to flesh that out as to how that looks. I mean, we do have our app, and whether the app can be linked to 511 or I don't know, but I think those are all things that we can figure out as it goes on. Yep.
Yeah, and after getting through this winter, one of the unique things that we've realized, or I've realized with Lucan, and again, this will show up in the sidewalk discussion, is the dependency on walking to school. We have crossing guards in place to make sure our kids get to school safely across our roads. There's a lot of municipalities don't have that expectation on their sidewalks. Minimum maintenance standards are 48 hours to clear your sidewalks after the event has ended. So a lot of municipalities take that time frame. So when the snow stops, in 2 days, the sidewalks will be open. I'm not sure that's the level of service. That's a discussion we'll have when we get to the sidewalk discussion about Lucan sidewalks. The other thing that I want to make sure is Lisa's great at posting stuff, but it's not up to her to decide what the message is, because it's always changing. And I think what we have to do is work together and set up some standardized messages that go out. And then that way, then if I'm in the middle of something, I can say, send out A, send out B, and we maybe have to tweak it a little bit, but I don't think we need to be trying to come up with the message in the middle of a snowstorm, you know, trying to get the message out. So I think we need some standardization in our communication, and I think that's part of the winter plan that should come forward in the fall about communication and that sort of thing. And that winter maintenance plan will have levels of service that I'll bring forward to council to review. When are our plows going out? What routes do they do? How often do they go out? That sort of thing. Because as a council, everyone should be aware what is going on the road. So there's a lot of information going to come forward, and it's not new. I'm not making anything up. Every municipality has something similar. But I think after this winter, I think we just need to nail it down a little bit better. Yeah.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, the whole 511 issue. I think I had mentioned to Jeff, like, there's no communication like from their levels to municipalities. So it is going on and refreshing and seeing what's going on. So it is me or whoever going on 511, because that's the only, we find out just like everyone else does, and posting that during those last two storms where 23 and 4 were closed. The last two times we did push it on our app. I did renew it when it opened. I pushed that. Same as our social media, same sort of things. And it was, I think, on weekends as well. I think both storms when they were closed. So it was just a matter of, yeah, literally manually going on 511 and seeing if anything's changed. That's unfortunately, there's no, I'm not sure if there's any other better way of doing it at this time anyway.
Okay. No, appreciate all the efforts. And I think, again, it is somewhat of a learning curve. I mean, you brought up the 70s, Jeff. Well, in the 70s, you didn't have access to that information right there in your hands all the time and expecting that it was, going to magically change, like you waited it out or you did whatever, but we've become so dependent on having that information, so I think we have to look at how we manage that communication. And again, what is the level of service that we are going to offer? I think that's just as important as the actual service that we're delivering. So, and I just wanted to say about sidewalks, having in the last month put a lot of steps on sidewalks, there definitely is definitely different levels of service across municipalities. So that's all I'm going to say. And there's no question. Yeah. Municipalities deal with it differently. So, okay, thank you very much for that, Jeff. With that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I have two more reports that will be fairly straightforward. These are reports that come to council each year. The first one I'm bringing forward, oh, do I have that out of sync? Nope, I got it right. So the first one is the gravel tender. The dust control. So I do have it out of sync there. Sorry. There we go. So the dust control came back. It is, we did send out, we are using the county. I would say that we are using the county procurement department for all our tenders and they've been great supporting us and have made the transition was seamless, and it's been a great addition to how we do this. So the dust control one is first. It came back. We did get 4 bids back. Denmark is the lowest bid at 89,337. It is under budget, so we are okay that way. Denmark has a history. They've been doing our dust control for a number of years, and I think we have a really good working relationship with them. The tender itself is about up 2% over 2024. So that's, I thought, was reasonable when we've been dealing with such high inflation in the last few years. At 2% is not bad. So yeah.
Okay, any questions on that one? I'm just going to ask the question, and I think I've asked it before. I think it's been asked before. For anybody looking at the table, there is a significant difference between Denmark, the lowest, and then the next company, and then the other two. And I think I know the answer, but I'll just ask you, Jeff, is there a reason why there is such a significant difference between the bids? Oh, you don't have your,
I turned it off. There we go. So there is a number of products that qualify as dust control products, and that's all governed under the ministry standards. The top one, daily dust control, they always quote pure calcium or I shouldn't call it pure calcium. It's a 33% calcium product. So if someone said I'm putting calcium on my road, it would be a product from Daily. It's a very controlled product. Denmark brines actually, it's a combination of different products that it's salts from the ground. It does meet the standard of dust control, and that's why they're all slightly different, is they're all slightly different products they're bidding on.
okay, thank you for that. And with that, you've got a motion in front of you to accept the Denmark brines tender in the amount of $89,337. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And the gravel.
And the gravel came back. We did get five bids back on the gravel. It came in at $172,700, and that equates to $15.70 a ton. Last year, in 2024, it was $15.32, so it is up 2.5%. McCann Ready Mix came in at the low bid. We have had McCann's the last 2 years, so there was no discussion. They've done a decent job for us, and so the recommendation is to go with low bid.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then the recommended motion is to accept the McCann one for $172,700. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? All right, thank you. And anything verbal you wanted to add to all of that, Jeff? Thank you. I know, did you want some water? Exactly. No, but thank you for that. I think great conversations and on, well, I was gonna say on 2 of the reports, but no, great information. Thank you on that. Okay, Parks and Rec, Darcy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first report is in regards to the AED locations in the municipality. Obviously, with an event that happened a couple months ago, it's a highlight on our AEDs and where they are. So I did a report to show where our current AED locations are, our inspection schedule and how they're maintained through us and the EMS, as well as then I highlighted some locations and where I think our next highest priorities would be to add AEDs. So I will gladly take any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Darcy. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Matt. If I may, Darcy, thank you for the report. I'm just noticing on the report for the locations, it seems to me that we're missing Elm Street Park. In the summer, that park is used heavily. There's a lot of people of varying ages there, and I'm just wondering why we've not decided to put one there.
Yeah, so I guess through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Regan, mainly like that list isn't inclusive. I wouldn't say like those are the only 4 spots we need them. I would just put that as our 4 highest priorities with staff, just because of the level of activity that it's at those parks with having the active parks more than the passive parks. I'm not saying Elm Street wouldn't be a very good candidate to be along. I just kind of did the top 4 priorities that I can see right now. Elm Street and Spencer Street, Spencer Court Park would be important as well. So, I mean, that list could keep going and should keep going as we can add into those, but I would just put those as our top 4 priorities.
Deputy, oh, did you have follow-up?
No, not right at this moment. No, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
The expansion ones, are they seasonal?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, they would be seasonal, likely.
Now, do you have a sense, is that, they gonna talk what happened previous, but I'm always concerned about vandalism and theft. Is this common or a reaction?
Through you, Madam Mayor, theft, talking to EMS, they've only heard of one that has had any real theft or vandalism. It doesn't seem to be a top priority for vandalism or theft. There doesn't seem to be any value in stealing an AED. So obviously, it's always something that comes to mind when you put one out, but there is some that have cases that actually will alert, like I could have it on my phone that if it gets opened up, my phone will go off to say, hey, your AED's opened up, or someone that lives nearby or something. There is that to make them a little bit more theft proof, but talking to EMS, they don't have a big concern about theft or vandalism.
Yeah, that'd be a concern of mine, not for its use, just because of, neither is, graffiti on a wall useful neither. So, thank you.
Counselor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just on the top of theft, what's the approximate cost per unit for one of these AEDs?
So the cost of a unit like what the one that was donated, and I should highlight the one that was donated by the Lucan Rec League and the Lucan Businessmen's Golf Association, that was that just got put in the old lobby. It was about a $2,300 unit. And that comes with the case, the AED, some signage and that. So an indoor unit, you're looking at 2,300. An outdoor unit, I think, is another $1,000 or so, depending on what you get. If you go with a theft proof case or whatever. So that's your approximate cost.
Okay, thanks for that. And so I guess we work this into our budget somewhere, assuming that they have an expiry date. Do you know how long they last approximately, Darcy?
Through you, Madam Ware. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly how long, like obviously the pads have an expiry date. Batteries have the expiry date, so you do maintenance, but the actual unit, I'm trying to remember what the unit was that EMS just brought back to us after the incident, but I want to say he gave it another 5 years, so I think it was like a 10-year type deal on them before it's a full replacement, but you do replace the parts as deemed necessary.
Okay, thank you for the report.
Any other comments or questions on that? Okay. Nope, thanks for the report, and we'll take this opportunity. I don't know whether, because I think it had been announced in February, but if we didn't acknowledge the Men's Rec League and the Businessmen's Association for their donation, I think this is an appropriate time to do so publicly. So that's great. And we'll then look forward to having the discussion on expanding where we put our AEDs at budget time. Okay. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please? Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Your activity report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Activity report is pretty straightforward. Only one thing I would highlight is it has been very nice having the budget passed as early as it has to get bids and get quotes. We're mostly in the quote range for most of our capital projects, but it has kept them moving forward with having a lot more availability from vendors. So that has been really nice. And utilizing the Middlesex County procurement team has been a great success as well. So just wanted to highlight that. But other than that, my activity report's in front of you.
That's great. Any questions or comments on that? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, just seeing the last events there in coming up on March 30th. Are you taking the ice out, or what? I don't even know. I should know even better. Like, is it just an understanding our ice is in the summertime, or is it a case of contracts and you make a decision coming up? How, just as we all know how expensive it is to have ice in the summer.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. We will have ice up until the first week in June. So my understanding with Lucan Biddulph's practice is we take the ice out every 2 years for an amount of time, just to take the ice out, let the floor breathe. We do have in-floor heat, so not necessarily does frost get down, but it's nice to let it breathe and then build back up and repaint. So we are planning to do that the month of June, starting early June and being out for June. As of right now, the plan is to go back in for July 1st for the Canada Day Public Skate and then start renting July 2nd. And as of right now, especially throughout April and May, our ice is absolutely packed, which is great to see. I have started and will have a report before council probably in the month of April to show cost in the summer, as well as revenue, and it actually preliminarily it will surprise council on how summer isn't that much more expensive than winter.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hodgins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the capital projects for the tractor purchase, could you confirm the cost of the Kubota tractor? And further to our earlier discussion, is this potentially coming from the United States or gonna be subject to doing tariffs?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just trying to get the exact cost. I have it here by email. It was just under the $65,000 budget, but it is from Canada. It is in Canada. It's actually probably very close to being delivered to us. So there's no tariffs. Off the top of my head, and I can definitely confirm without looking through my emails, but it's around 58,000 plus HST, I think was the total of the tractor.
Okay, thank you for that. And I had one other question. Just with the access control for the gym door. So that's to allow access in and out of the gym, maybe when it's there's not a staff person there. I just wanted to maybe clarify that. Are people able to then use the gym without staff? And is there any I guess concerns about I guess if somebody gets hurt in the gym or they could potentially be, lifting weights, is there some controls there just to prevent, any liability related to that?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So yeah, there is some concern about injuries in the gym, and yes, the fob system does allow for some drop-in gym when a staff or a leader isn't inside the gym. We have talked to our staff, and they are doing walks around and looking through the doors to ensure that no one's laying there as part of our procedure, just like we do the other gym that we have when there's a rental. We just make sure that when we know that there's people in there, we take a look, and obviously when closing, we double check to make sure everybody's out. Our agreement that with the fitness did go through a lawyer to make sure that we weren't too far offside with what we agreed upon. We feel confident that with our practices in place that we take out most of the risk of that. So.
Okay, thank you. And is there do we have a camera in that? It's kind of just, as another measure.
Yeah, there's a surveillance camera, and those cameras are always shown in the back room, so staff can always monitor in and out of those at all times.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the activity report? Seeing none, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Did you have any other verbal, Darcy? Okay, thanks. Lisa, Economic Development.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I have an activity report in front of council this evening. Goes over the logo branding, the launch. You may have seen it on some clothing already, on our emails, website, social medias, other spots. So we're just kind of clarifying the rollout of that. Obviously, we're going to do things as they come up. We're not going to all of a sudden replace the sign or do those sort of things until it's kind of ready to go. But anything new will have logo on it. We, as discussed before, bylaws minutes will retain our corporate logo. So any questions on that, feel free after the report. I also gave a general economic development update on the streetscape strategy, the CIP program, and just general idea of what the CEDC is up to these days. That's everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments on the activity report for economic development? Yep.
It's actually just triggered me probably to ask Darcy a question. Sorry. Just sign, and I don't think it's working, and you know, but the sign across the road there in front of the arena, the digital sign, you know, it is to me economic development and our arena manager. Is that thing dead, or is that or is it working?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We actually just about right around budget time, we went out and tried to get a opinion on that. We had some investigation. Through that investigation, as of right now, the company said it is no longer working. They gave us a quote for basically replacement, and it was $55,000. I'm trying to seek a second opinion from another company to ensure that there's not something we're missing, but that's what the quote came back from a company in Centralia, that it would be 55,000 to get that back running.
Okay. No, yeah, because I wasn't sure if that because Lisa, you do the sign out front here, right? Like all the messaging. So that when we did the sign in front of the arena, when that was there, and whoever supported us in that, I think it was the Lions Club. That was put there when I believe was there when we were at the other township office, correct? So I'm just wondering, rather than having unfunctional equipment on our main street, if that should just be removed now that we're right here and have messaging here where we didn't have it before. And we just simply have the backhoe, maybe Jeff's team come in, cut the lines and just remove it. We have messaging right across the street. We've gone probably 3 years of looking at a sign where people will and not questioning why it's not working or functioning. And I just don't know why we do that to ourselves.
Did you want to give direction or did you want to like?
No, I just want to complain. No, well, yeah, I get, yeah, I'll make them, I don't know what I need I need two other council members to agree. They don't want a sign not working out front with a working one across the road.
I'm shocked at the 55,000. I know, I mean,
thought I'd
that
heard
was purchased with under 17 money. And the Lions, I think, kicked in some. And there was some money that came from the municipality. I think, anyways, there was an agreement, but it certainly wasn't that kind of dollars. And yeah, I'm shocked at that actually for what it is essentially, because I think it's just basically one message that can run through. It's not nearly as sophisticated as the one out here. But anyways, yeah, Councillor Hodgins.
Through you, I'm wondering if we should maybe get a second look at it just to see, like, it's, you know, if it's the $55,000 is a bit much, but I wonder if just an electrician can maybe look at it, or if I don't know if it's that simple, but I don't know. To me, maybe it's more visible there. Maybe, like, I don't know if this one maybe gets a little bit less traffic just because it's right at the arena where people are driving by a lot. And I just hate to see it go if it's a more simple fix than what maybe has been alluded to. So maybe some more investigation first.
Councillor Reagan.
No, I was just wondering too about the fact that it's very visible there. Was there any discussion about, because we talked about this about a month ago, right? And I was just wondering if there's any discussion about, because I was shocked at the price too, but it was about fixing it or getting a second opinion or having them look at that. I understand that we've got that sign out there too, but that's kind of central to the community center and it's advertising community events. And I know we have it here as well, but again, just before we rip it out, I'm just wondering, should we have a second look? Because like 55,000 is, you know, just to fix it, right? Not to replace it, right? Was it 55 to fix?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the 55,000 was to basically take down the screen and put up, like, keep the pillars, but put up a new screen. Just because they said. So I will be honest with you that when I got the $55,000 email, I nearly fell off my chair myself. So what maybe if I can take as direction for council, if you will, is that I do some investigating through the month of March and maybe the first one in April or May that I come back with a report saying, this is all the information I have from the sign and we could make a decision then? if
Yeah,
that
like I don't think it's fair to just knee jerk. I know it's something that we've talked about for a number of years because it hasn't worked properly and we've always, I think, gotten a reason maybe why it hasn't worked, but before we take it, before we knee jerk it, maybe just if you could, just to see if there's any other option out there for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, sorry, Lisa, for flipping it to that, but it did involve both, yes. But like I just want to be like on an inexpensive fix. This has, I believe, gone on our previous council even. I believe it's been that long. I really do, but I'm not gonna swear by that, but I feel it started previous, like just the previous council. But anyways, again, the reasoning, we didn't have signage here, and I know what everyone's saying, but I mean, I think also what's different from 1 year ago is our traffic going to Foodland is now different. So we are passing this sign at a much higher rate than we were, so, but if it's an inexpensive fix and it's not taking too much of your time, I agree. I would, yeah, I don't know what better, it's not knee jerk, but it's just, we've gone a lot of years with it not working and I just soon see it gone. Now, out of respect, I guess I'd follow up. I don't know if the Lions Club's
Yeah.
logo's on there or something. When I'll leave that to Darcy if he should say, we are thinking of decommissioning this and taking it down. It's whatever quote you find, before they potentially would react and say, we would have paid for this, if we would have known. So I guess I'll just add that comment.
So Lucan Minor Hockey's logos on it as well as the Lions Club, because it was Lucan Minor Hockey's initiative
Yep, so,
to put the sign up.
so-
And then they asked Lions to kick in.
Yeah.
And then Rostenbergs, they donated the pillars for it. So
But I think I'd also just add to that, then once you find out, maybe a quote would be to let those two organizations know. Obviously, unless you get a surprise that it's quite a bit lower, that we're going to be working from this sign, and that's going to be decommissioned unless you come up with something else.
Yep.
Sorry, has Lucan Minor Hockey or the Lions asked about it, or has anyone else said anything about it, or?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have not been approached by either of those two groups. I think it was kind of a conversation I had with staff just pulling in. I was like, what's going on with the sign? I haven't heard much. And then we did have that conversation a month ago after we had gotten the quote. Like, I honestly thought it was a call to Consolidated Signs. We'd have it up and it would be a low cost fix, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So yeah, if you can give me some time, I'll investigate and I'll talk to Lions Club and Minor Hockey, but I'll try to get a solution for council one way or the other in a month or two, hopefully, if that works.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So now back to the EDC activity report. Was there any other comment or question on that report? Just, I like to see the rollout of the logo, and it'll be exciting to watch that kind of become more part of our regular day-to-day business. With that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. And all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, councillor comments. Okay.
No, I'm just thinking of this. I do think this is going to be the ask or confirmation of Huron Transit is going to be asked quicker than we think. And I think everyone has a feeling where I'm sitting on that. So I guess what I'd like to know is staff, and Ron's not here, and ideally for the next meeting is Middlesex Connect. Is there greater, less than 3 riders using that a week? Or how many is there any stats on that? Because I think what I don't end is Middlesex Connect planning on asking municipalities to support that going forward, or are they looking at stopping that in the future? Or are they looking to continue to run that? From what was presented today, I don't think we needed 2 public transit systems in Lucan Biddulph. I would sooner, before the meeting, I did look at the map and what Middlesex Connect taking us to Masonville and our community. I'd be surprised if it's less than 3 a week. I don't know. I don't know the numbers. This is the first numbers I've seen from here. But if we, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I mean, 22,000 is a lot of money. We couldn't come up, we just gave our ratepayers 166,500 added 4.5% to our tax rate. And we couldn't come up with anything to save that, to lower that for our ratepayers. And I really want to concentrate this year on really being careful on adding future expenses. And to me, that demand, certainly having 2 public transit systems is not, I'm not in favor for. So if we decide to jump on this, I couldn't imagine us putting up our hand for 2 servicing Lucan Biddulph. So I don't know if it should be in the business arising, but unfortunately, they probably almost needs to be the next meeting, is just a little bit of an update on the usage and of that. Because if it's lower than that, then maybe there'll be an appetite for Huron, transit. But I guess that's what I kind of want to know a little bit more about the usage. If staff could get back to me on the Middlesex Connect, because certainly in my deliberations and debate with the rest of council, I want that, because to add 22,000 to our budget, I mean, we couldn't pull anything down from 166,000. And we gave a 4.5% increase, and this is February. And to add that just doesn't make sense to me. Now, or we simply don't support the Huron transit system, and then that's, we do have the other one available, but I just don't want the second ask coming. That's all. So
I think it was about a year ago that Connect was here the last time, I would think, probably, with a ridership update, and staff will be able to get that, those numbers quite quickly. They have those numbers in real time, and I mean, because they're doing the same thing, so I would think that they'd be able to come back with what the data is, or what the data has been in 2024. The one thing, and I think that they're fleshing out, I haven't had an opportunity, I had just a brief opportunity to talk to Cindy today about kind of where they're at. And it was just, as I say, very brief, but they're in the process of trying to figure out what their next steps are. They're putting in an application with OTIF, just like Lambton Shores is. And as I say, SCORE is, but $5 million isn't going to go very far. But I don't think at this point they've fleshed out what their ask is going to be when it comes to gas tax. That is the province's answer, is that gas tax, you've got that transit gas tax money if you're providing, so to access it. But I don't think that they've necessarily fleshed out coming to Lucan Biddulph, coming to Middlesex Centre. Thames Centre, it is interesting, Middlesex County Connect runs through Thames Centre, Dorchester, on the 2 routes. One goes Dorchester, White Oaks down to Elgin. That's Route 3. That's the newest route. The other one goes Dorchester into Eastland, into Fanshawe, I believe. But it's interesting because Thames Centre actually had given Perth County access to their transit gas tax money for the Perth County route. And that was because nothing at one point, like there was nothing going through Thorndale. So the hopes would be that that Perth County route, because it comes down it comes down like Prospect Hill into number 7. Could it have gone into Thorndale? But it never did. And then of course, Steve maybe said that there'd be a good there's a good chance that Perth may not go forward with it. So who knows? But Thames Center's gas tax money is already spoken for at this point with Perth County. So as I say, the Middlesex hasn't fleshed out what they're doing for the gas tax ask.
And I guess I would look at it as, I would roll the dice at, again, they could be not successful and Huron Shores successful in that going for the $5 million. So I'd be surprised that if Huron, if just say Middlesex Connect is not successful and Huron is, then to me, we would then start potentially negotiations if we did want to offer transit, and because all of a sudden you don't have that transit and however many people are using it, plus the 3 that are using this a week, then we could, I assume, talk to them and get back on their route. So, or get back involved with them, I assume. So, no, I'm really concerned with us already having Middlesex Connect. If we decided to move forward with that kind of expense and that low of usage, and then any appetite for anything else, I would hope we wouldn't be interested in.
So Tina's just informed me that actually the county CAOs are getting together with and Cindy and Kara, and they'll be talking Middlesex County Transit next week. So they should be able to get that information for March 18th. And yeah, okay. Any other comments? So we've had a lot of discussion. It's come out a couple times about the tariffs and the threat of tariffs. And I know at the last meeting, Councillor Hodgins, you brought up, should we be doing something? I believe that, again, the CAOs will be talking about it. But I do think we need, and I'm not looking to make a statement, but I would like to have a better understanding of what our procurement policy speaks to when it comes to buying Canadian and buying local. I think that is a place to start. I think we need a better understanding of what it is we can do. And the thresholds of spending for staff. Does it make sense, to buy a fire truck in Canada? Likely not. Our options are very limited. I think when it comes to that, maybe our only option is to buy from the States. What does that mean? But I think that there's other things we can look at and be prepared for. So I would like staff to come back with, what does our procurement policy look like? How does it speak to buying Canadian, buying local? And maybe from there, we can think about direction given as to how we make purchases. Because I think that there are purchases that we could make. We do have to take into consideration percentages, and it's still taxpayer money that we're responsible for. But if there's an opportunity to buy Canadian, buy local at a spend that is not out of line, I think we should maybe look at considering that. So I would like staff to bring back a report on our procurement policy, and we can go from there as we deal with this chaotic threat of tariffs that I think will be over us. Okay. I think put it in business arising, and go from there. But I don't want to lose sight of it, because as much as we think, oh, who knows what'll happen in 2 days, who knows what'll happen in 2 days after that. So. Okay. If there aren't any other councillor comments, I don't think there's any changes to budget, no notices of motion. We'll go into the motions in front of us in the accounts. The first one is for the accounts paid for the month of January. So Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph received the attached accounts as paid for information, and that's for January 2025 for a total of $921,050.91. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor, and that's carried. Then for the OSAM conference, that council authorized Kathy Burkhart-Jessen and Daniel Regan to attend the annual OSAM conference in Collingwood from April 30th to May 2nd of this year at a registration cost of $600 each, plus HST. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Westman, all in favor? That's carried. We have two bylaws in front of us, the one for the fire truck and then the confirming bylaw. So that if no one cares to speak to bylaws 10-2025 through 11-2025 inclusive on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan, all in favor? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn our meeting at 8:55. A mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Manders and